You are listening to the ERP Organizational Change Journal, a podcast brought to you by Nestle and Associates.
So I know, Russell, that Navigator has many blog posts regarding selection. And as I'd mentioned earlier, Nestle and Associates puts a lot of emphasis on this idea of selection and finding that one best fit for every organization. But for example, on your Navigator site, and again, we'll share this link with our listeners, but you have articles called How to Evaluate an ERP System. Another one is ERP Evaluation. Are you looking at price or value? Another one is How to Pick the Best ERP Solution for Your Startup. And then lastly, another article is System Fit is like buying the right house for your family. I thought they were all really nice articles. But would you agree that ERP system selection is one of the most crucial decisions to be made during the ERP organizational change endeavor, and why? And I ask that, Russell, because as you know, there are many hundreds of different vendors in the ERP space. And so I'm curious to get your general advice for organizations that are looking to select an ERP solution.
Yeah, out of all the blogs that you just mentioned, the system fit is like buying the right house for your family kind of resonates with me the most. As we talked a little bit earlier about the differences between B1 and by design, there's a lot of overlap in features and functions. This is how you want to get there. What does your organization look like? How big is it going to be next year? How big is it going to be in the next 5 years? And what's your growth strategy? Is it acquisition? Is it international growth? All of those are factors that kind of come into buying the right ERP solution, because you're going to put more value on maybe a more global solution, or maybe a more IT heavy solution, or more of a cloud solution where you don't want to consider IT as a core competency. So there's a lot of factors that really go into it. And to me, it's just like buying a house for your family, right? Are you going to house your mother, or are you going to have another kid? Do you want to live in a good school district? The same variables that are going to influence your ERP selection are going to influence, in kind, like buying a house.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pretty broad idea too, because you're looking at how well does the software model my business, right? Every business has a way of doing business. Does it have the right features and functions? What is the implementation partner methodology? So there's just a lot that goes into system selection. And it seems to me, Russell, a big part of our business is helping organizations through that process. And with so many options, and there's so many marketing and sales approaches, and so many organizations having never been through an ERP selection previously, what would you say to our listeners in terms of how can organizations focus on looking at the true differentiators in terms of the ERP vendors and maybe even the partners? Again, I mentioned this before in articles and also on our podcast. I tell people all the time that during the sales pitch, you can often swap logos on the same slide deck and leave the rest, and they all seem to say the same thing. What do you say? And I'm being facetious, having a little fun with that. But what do you say about that? And what are some of the things to consider when trying to understand the true differentiators between ERP options during the selection process and the ERP partners as well?
Yeah, I think it all starts with really take the time to build a good RFP, right? Have all of your requirements. Don't just include the stakeholders, but also the business leads as well as the people doing the execution, right? Make sure that you have a solid RFP that's going to address the critical decision points in your organization, or address the pain points, right? Not only the pain points, but make sure it'll do what works well is today in your system, right? And so have a good demo script or what you want to see from the vendors. Don't be afraid when you're going through a demo in an ERP system to ask specific questions or get another demo on a specific segment. I think a lot of people tend to shy away from that. But the time and investment that you put up front in your selection process is going to pay dividends in the long run to, like I said, buy that right home, buy the right ERP system. When it comes to selecting that vendor, this isn't just a one-time project, right? You're getting in a long-term partnership with your ERP implementation vendor. At Navigator, we have a customer for life motto, right? We want to be with you when you're small and as you grow, and help be that trusted advisor with you as technology changes, as your business changes, as you expand into different product lines or industries or regions, right? So we want to be part of that growth cycle with you. That's really our ideal customer. So with that said, another really important factor is you want to know the partner themselves. You want to trust the salespeople, but the most important thing I can tell the listeners right now is meet your project team. You want to be comfortable with the people that are actually going to be on your project, and don't hesitate to ask that before you commit to any contractual obligations, because those are the people that are going to be with you and your trusted advisors throughout the project and the next several years.
That's great advice and great insight, Russell. I appreciate that. And especially trust the partner. And just the one point I'll say to that is during the selection process, there's a lot you can do to really figure out if you can trust your partner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a critical piece, but you have to get that sense for trust. Obviously, before you sign on the line, you've got to know that trust is there and that you're going to have the right people and they're going to be committed and dedicated to your organization. So I think that is often an underestimated aspect of the selection process, for sure.
Yeah. Also, make sure that they have experience in your industry. For example, have they invested in your industry? Is there any specific intellectual property that they have around it? And finally, references. If the partner doesn't have customers that want to reference for them, that's a good indication that they might not be successful in your space.